So the very first meeting took place in April in London and is being chaired by Paul. And Paul essentially called together a number of people from different aspects of the ocular melanoma pathway, treatment pathway, from diagnosing the primary tumour clinically, also with pathologists, and then surgeons who involved radiologists and general oncologists. So the idea of this group, I understand it to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we to create a uniform set of guidelines or recommendations for the treatment of the uveal melanoma patients from the very beginning and all along the way to the oncologists, and trying to make it uniform across the country, because there is obviously considerable variability in the I guess the quality and the intensity of treatment. But these are meant to be only recommendations and not meant to be prescriptive. So these are the slides from Nancy and Paul. So why develop the guidelines? To improve the standards of care, defining best practice, defining areas of research where improvement can occur, and also facilitating collaborations, particularly in these very rare diseases. So with the ocular melanoma, or intraocular melanoma, there are particular issues, I guess, which we've discussed during the day. Detection, diagnosis, management, prognostication tests, surveillance, what type of screening, how you manage any recurrences in the intraocular tumours, how you manage the distant metastases, and how do you pass on all of this information to the patients and the patient carers. So how do you develop the guidelines? It's meant to be evidence-based, which is probably possible in more common cancers, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, etc. But it is difficult with rare diseases such as uveal melanoma. However, the evidence-based guidelines do have the best chances of being solid and weathering storms of criticism. And there are different approaches which I'll go through later, and how you collect all this evidence, how you sift through it, and then how you put the guidelines together. So where the evidence doesn't exist in the literature, which there is a definite risk that it doesn't in the case of uveal melanomas, then you have this panel which comes up with consensus statements or recommendations. However, should there be differing opinions where people are really thumping on the table, then this should be reflected in the final document. So initially, when people say that you should have guidelines, recommendations, there are, I guess, the initial reaction could be, how is this going to affect how I look after my patients? Is there going to be sort of quality and external control? Well, this isn't the case. It is meant to be recommendations, and some of these can be taken on board, hopefully most, and others, if not appropriate, then left. So this is the slides from Nancy, how you develop guidelines. Now, Nancy has developed guidelines for other tumours and is one of the driving forces in this group. So this is a map, which is quite overwhelming at first, but essentially you come up with a scope, what you're actually trying to achieve. Then you set out in your first guideline development program or your meeting the particular questions you want to address. You divide the group up into subgroups according to perhaps their areas of expertise. You have the help of people who help you sift through the evidence, the literature, and then the idea is during the progressive meetings that you come up with recommendations These are then drafted, circulated to peer outside the group for additional suggestions, then revised. The document is revised and then published. So this evidence review, there's terminology which is applied when putting these guidelines together. One term that I didn't know before over the first meeting in April was PICO, which is, what a population are you looking at? What intervention or investigation are you examining? How does this compare to other types of investigations or interventions? And then the outcome. So for each single question along the pathway, you have to search the literature, appraise and combine all the evidence, review and debate within the group, produce a recommendation, and then circulate it and hopefully agree. Not always the case. So why can coming up with guidelines be so difficult? Well, there's no evidence out there. There's very little evidence. Perhaps it doesn't really explain the question. You've chosen the wrong population. You've chosen the wrong investigation or comparator and the wrong outcome. So the options are then to go back to square one, start again, choose the right questions, possibly extrapolate information and knowledge from other cancers, gain advice from groups, experts outside the group. Yes, ultimately you come to a vote, and you come up with a consensus. The pitfalls of not coming up with guidelines is essentially ignoring the evidence. There is this, perhaps this anxiety for clinicians that particular recommendations or opinions are being forced on them. And there are obviously differences in between the centres in how patients are treated or what investigations are done, and this could lead to heated discussions at the table and in emails following them. So how do you get, and this is the advice from Nancy to Paul, how do you get around this? Well, Paul has to be a good chair, and he was really good in April. He made the ground rules very, very clear at the very beginning. And he made sure that we were sticking to the agenda, sticking to the point all along the way. She did come up with particular phrases that he should constantly say, and sort of to interrupt any arguments or discussions. And I think a well-functioning group, and I think the group which has been put together is approximately 30 people. Hopefully meeting deadlines. We have got an agenda timeline set out for us. I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We should come to each meeting well prepared. Got a lot of work to do by October 8th. And yes, I guess we've got to all respect each other's opinion and have this concept of give and take. So the representatives at the table not only include professionals but also include patient representatives, and also Catherine is in the group representing OcuMel. And searching the evidence, we do have somebody, Olivia Lee, I think is her name, who is helping us go through all of the evidence, pulling out the relevant papers from using the literature searches, and we're hoping to pull it all together soon. So we can't deal with the whole pathway as one thing. It's been subdivided into different steps. So this is a summary in between that Nancy always sort of says, as a scout, you have to be prepared, know where you're going, know that you can get lost in all of this data, but try and still have some fun. Progress to date, yes, the meeting was in April in London. On October 8th, it will be in Liverpool. It has the support from the Royal College of Physicians, I think also the ophthalmologists, and probably the pathologists too. Nancy, as I said, is a driving force. Olivia Lee is helping, and Anupa, I don't know her last name, is helping very much with the collection of all the data from the literature and has experience in putting together Cochrane reviews. So these were the groups: management of the primary tumour, risk stratification and management, and surveillance, and then how you treat the metastatic disease. We're starting at the end, and we're going to, on October 8th, the group who has been looking at metastatic disease will present what they've done so far. And there are particular questions that are being addressed by this group. And Neela, you're part of this group, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always like next week.
So obviously you're very well prepared now. Evidence.
So that's essentially, we're still very much at the beginning phases, and we're going to hear a lot about the metastatic disease in Liverpool. I know Ernie Marshall has been very much involved with this. He unfortunately couldn't be here today. He, I think, would have more up-to-date information with respect to where they are. And then I don't know whether we're going to start with the primary tumour and then go to the variety of tests and the screening. But we're hoping, I think, within a year to have all of these guidelines put together. As I said, they will be then circulated to a variety of ocular oncologists, radiologists for peer review before they're being finalised and then published. So that's essentially all I can say to that. Thank you.
Thank you.